across to live images right now. Prime Minister Narendra Modi leaving from the national capital to Bali in Indonesia for the crucial G20 summit. These are the latest images that we're getting to you. It's going to be a quick visit for Prime Minister Modi, but no doubt one that's packed with, in fact, very, very important visits and meetings with world leaders. As part of the G20 summit, the most important takeaway is the fact that officially we'll be handed over the chairmanship of the G20 forum. We are going to be, in fact, leading the G20 summit in 2023. So Prime Minister Narendra Modi embarking, in fact, on his plane to head to Bali. He's going to be there essentially for about 45 hours, in which there are a number of meetings lined up. He had also put out a departure note just before he boarded his plane there, where he's in fact made it clear, where he's outlined why this particular visit is extremely important. He had a number of bilaterals on the sidelines of the G20 summit with world leaders, with leaders representing Indonesia, United Kingdom, France, Singapore, Australia, Germany and Spain. There's no clarity as of now whether there's going to be a sit-aside, a bilateral with US President Joe Biden as well. This is the 17th G20 summit. In all, the Prime Minister has around 20 engagements. As I mentioned, he's there for just about 45 hours. So it is going to be a jam-packed visit. Also important to highlight that this particular summit, while world leaders are coming together, Russian President Vladimir Putin has decided to give it a skip. So there will be no Putin-Modi meet at this particular event. There are multiple events as far as India is concerned that Prime Minister Modi will be taking part in. Importantly, he's going to be arriving in some time from now in Bali, after which immediately he'll get right down to business with a number of meetings. In all, about 10 world leaders with whom Prime Minister Modi will be holding bilaterals with as well. Now, in the departure note, the departure statement that the Prime Minister put out, he did say that he's going to be there to participate in the 17th G20 Leaders Summit. He's also said, and I quote, "I will have extensive discussions with other G20 leaders on key issues of global concern, such as reviving global growth, food and energy security, environment, health and digital transformation." So those are some of the aspects on which there will be a reinstated focus in this particular 17th edition of the G20 summit. Of course, as I mentioned, it's important for a number of reasons, most importantly because the chairmanship now will come to us here in India, as we're going to be hosting the G20 summit next year in 2023 here in the national capital. He's also, Prime Minister Modi in that statement has said that on the sidelines of the G20 summit, I will meet with leaders of several other participating countries and review the progress in India's bilateral relations with them. I look forward to addressing the Indian community in Bali. So that will be happening tomorrow, the Indian diaspora meet and greet, which has become a part and parcel of every international visit that the Prime Minister makes to these countries. So Prime Minister Modi there heading to Bali for that very crucial G20 summit. As far as the big headlines globally on the G20 summit is concerned, it's besides the fact that Prime Minister Modi is going to be sharing the stage with the Chinese president along with the US president there. But one bilateral that everyone's talking about is the US-China one. Chinese President Xi Jinping is going to be arriving in Bali anytime now. He's going to be meeting with US President Joe Biden ahead of the G20 summit. Now, there is no clarity about whether there's a bilateral with China or with the United States. It's not listed as of now by the MEA. We've got bilateral sit-asides with countries like Indonesia, with the United Kingdom importantly, with France, Singapore, Australia, Germany, as well as Spain. So this will be important because also the first meeting that we're going to be seeing between Prime Minister Modi and British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. Geeta Mohan, who's getting us all the updates live from Bali, is also joining us on this broadcast. Geeta, we're currently beaming the images of Prime Minister Modi embarking on that plane. He's going to be landing in Bali in a few hours from now. Take us through why this particular visit by the Prime Minister, a quick one, 45 hours in Bali, is extremely important for India.
Well, it is a very significant year for India, Akshita, because the G20 presidency will be handed over to India for 2023, which begins in December of this year. And Prime Minister Narendra Modi is going to make some significant statements here at various meetings and the summit level, leadership level meeting as well. We know that there are bilaterals that are lined up on the sidelines, like you were saying, but he's leaving right now. He was to leave a little early, but there are certain meetings that did not really firm up, and that's the reason why he's leaving a little later. He'll be landing in Bali around 10 o'clock Bali time, and will be arriving at his hotel a little later than that, where in all probability there would be a few, if not many, but at least a few from the Indian diaspora waiting to welcome him. He is to hold a spectacular major Indian diaspora event tomorrow, and also on the sidelines of the G20 summit, like you said, there are bilateral meetings that are firmed up, lined up. We know that the Indonesian president certainly has a bilateral meeting with Prime Minister Modi, as also the UK Prime Minister, for the first time after becoming Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, would be meeting Prime Minister Modi. And then there are meetings with Singapore, France, Germany, Australia, all of them lined up. Again, unlikely that he would be meeting President Xi Jinping, but we are still to hear on a confirmation or for that matter, whether if there is going to be a meeting with US President Biden or not. So significant over here because he's going to come and he's going to speak about spell out what India's agenda for 2023 of the G20 presidency is going to look like. It is going to be about economic recovery, post-pandemic recovery, food and security, and energy security, but all that in tandem with the environment, with climate change, and with social equity. So all of them, including Indonesia, similarly speaking on the same lines, talking about inclusivity. Prime Minister Modi, as also External Affairs Minister Jaishankar, have been saying that G20, Akshita, is more representative of the new world order than earlier groupings or the other groupings, such as the smaller ones, such as the Group of Seven, which do not really represent the entire global order today. So India at the high table and India going to take over presidency of the G20 certainly is an important year for India, and India certainly will be spelling out the agenda for the coming year.
That's right. So essentially setting the theme and the tone for 2023 when we take over the presidency, of the G20 summit, which we will host next year. Thanks very much, Geeta. We're going to keep coming across to you for all the latest updates from Bali.